Hello everybody, George Taylor here from Entracte Audio. This video is a little bit different from most of the other ones that we've shot. This is not information about any piece of equipment. We're going to talk about some terminology and some things you might need to know as audio clients or audio buyers or audio hobbyists, whatever you want to call it. And the video was spurred by a couple of incidents. First of all, a lot of people email and message and contact about asking about specs for various components, for amplifiers, preamplifiers, DACs. And they ask, but the big question is, why don't we post them? Why don't we talk about them more? I'm going to start answering that, but it's going to take more than one video. This is the first of a series of videos on that very topic. The second incident, and it's actually a multiple incident too, it's happened a couple times. Clients have taken home an amplifier to demo, brought it back and said, I don't understand. This amplifier that you sent me home with has 50 watts per channel. The amplifier I have here at home has about 100 watts per channel or 120 watts per channel. But the amplifier you sent me home with is louder, or it seems more powerful. Why is that? So, just first in a series of videos to talk about audio measurements and what they mean or don't mean, is going to deal with watts per channel. And specifically, what does the measurement of watts per channel actually tell us? Now, bear with me. I'm going to use some analogies and some other topics that people understand a little bit better than watts per channel, and hopefully this will give you a really good understanding of why watts per channel is a measurement that you probably don't want to pay a ton of attention to, but we'll get into why that is. So, first of all, let's talk about horsepower, and this is in a car. All right, if we want to find out the horsepower of a car, what we do is we hook it up to a thing called a dynamometer, and you can do it two ways. You can either hook the car engine directly to a dynamometer if you want to take it out of the car engine, or you can put a car on a platform that's got a dynamometer attached to it, and you can run the car on the dynamometer and measure the power out of the tires as opposed to measuring it out of the crankshaft. All right, either way you do it, the procedure is simply this. You run the engine or the drivetrain up to the point where you're getting the maximum amount of torque out of the engine, the maximum measured torque. The dynamometer tells you what RPM you're at. So you take the measured torque plus the measured RPM, you multiply them, divide them by the constant of 5252, and that equals horsepower. Okay? Now, what you have to understand is that that's horsepower under an ideal condition, which means a flat road, no curves, no bumps, no uphill, no headwind. Okay? So we're talking about what would the horsepower be on a very flat road, driving just in a straight line. Okay? So, flat, smooth, straight road. No passengers, no trailer, no headwind. So, absolutely perfectly ideal conditions for horsepower. Okay? Now, there's another term I use in here, torque, which is the amount of force developed. And the way, if you read enough auto journals, you can find out that horsepower defines top speed. That tells you how fast your car can go. Torque is more like how quickly you can accelerate and how you can sustain energy transfer from the engine to the wheels to drive the car. Okay? And it's actually probably a more realistic measurement of what the car is actually capable of doing. Now, torque is pretty easy to measure, again, on a dynamometer. Okay? In audio, it's not quite so easy. Watts per channel really, when you boil it down, watts per channel really equates to horsepower in audio equipment. And how we measure horsepower or watts per channel in audio equipment is with a 1 kilohertz sine wave going into the amplifier, and then we have a pure resistive load here of 8 ohms. Okay? Again, the 8 ohms doesn't waver up and down, it's just a pure resistive load, and it's a pure sine wave. So again, ideal conditions, right? Flat road, straight road, no bumps, no hills, no headwind, no curves, no nothing. Okay? Straight, straight, straight. No passenger, no trailer, no nothing. It's ideal conditions. All right? That's how we measure it. So here's where we run into the problem. Real music, when you play real music, it's more like off-roading. Okay? And for off-roading, for bumps, twists, turn, bad terrain, all of those things, you need torque. You need to be paying attention to this. Okay? Not horsepower. So not watts per channel, because that doesn't tell you under real conditions. Because look, real music, here's a sine wave for a test, but real music has multiple waveforms doing multiple things, and they're not just straight sine waves, they have all sorts of peaks and valleys in them. Okay? Off-roading. So when you run real music into an amplifier, and then you've got your load over here, which is approximately 8 ohms, but let's face it, I mean, that changes, that load changes depending on what frequencies are running into speakers, and speakers generally vary vastly. I mean, you get a few good speakers that, like an ATC speaker that'll sit at 6 ohms throughout an entire frequency range. There are speakers that go up as over 12 ohms and down lower than 2. I mean, for crying out loud, you get speakers that go down to 1 ohm. But the problem is there's not an easy way to measure music under these sorts of real life conditions, right? When you're off-roading, you'd have a hard time measuring you'd have a hard time measuring horsepower or torque or anything else with the car bouncing up and down and twisting and turning. Same with music. The conditions for measurement are always changing. The waveforms are changing. The resistive load is changing. It's all in transition all the time. So horsepower is not a good way to measure for off-roading, and unfortunately watts per channel is not a good measurement tool for when you're running real music into an amplifier with a load that changes all the time. Okay? So in a simplified version, you kind of have to think of it this way. Watts per channel equals horsepower. And that's related to your transformer and the voltage and the current. Okay? Torque, because this is the one that's more this is what really relates more to real world playing of music. That's more like acceleration, and that's your power supply, and that's capacitance and the ability to transfer energy. So why does 50 watts per channel in an amplifier that's got a well-built power supply and is well constructed inside to help transfer energy quickly? That's why 50 watts can sound more volume or more power than 120 watts, because the 120 watts isn't supported by a big enough power supply. So, what is watts per channel? What does it actually tell us? It tells us very minimal and general information. I mean, it will tell us that if you have a tube amplifier that outputs 3 watts per channel into 8 ohms, well, that tells you that it's not going to drive a big pair of speakers very well if they're not really, really efficient. Bottom line is this. You need to consider what equipment you're looking at, what equipment you're considering, what amplifier, how loud you want to listen to music, what kind of speakers you're driving, and more importantly than anything else, you need to listen. Okay? There's no way to overemphasize that point. So please, 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 if at all possible, don't buy an amplifier or any piece of equipment on specs Get out and listen to it. Yeah, it's a little bit of trouble, and you have to go and take your time, and you take other people's time. But at the end of the day, any good audio dealer knows that a happy customer is a better customer. So I would rather, and most people would rather, you came and listened and made a rational choice as opposed to buying something, taking it home, and then being disappointed by it. Okay? Thank you for watching. We'll be back with more videos on a few other topics like this. If you've got any questions, please, as always, I should go get the card. Hold on, I'm getting the card. If you've got questions, you can submit them here at www.angela-gilbert.com, or you can contact me at ontractaudio@rogers.com. Happy to answer any questions. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something from it. Take care. Have a great day. And thanks again for watching.